This is intrinsic anchoring set. It is mission critical that you learn how to activate your intrinsic anchoring set. The intrinsic anchoring set has everything to do with the connectivity in our bridging and connecting mission statement. Intrinsic anchoring simply means intrinsic. Basically, it's fancy voice lesson talk for inside. Okay, so if it's inside, we're referring to very small, delicate muscles on the inside. Extrinsic means bigger, broader muscles on the external, on the outside. So we're going to be talking about 3 very critical, small intrinsic muscular contractions that you need that are part of what is going to help you to make your head voice sound huge and boomy. Without intrinsic anchoring, all you got is vapor. Without intrinsic anchoring, pretty much what you got is this guy. You got falsetto, okay? If you're training and your head tones sound like this, or your head tones sound like this, really super quacky, the problem is you're not applying your full intrinsic anchoring set. You're not forming what we call a proper formant. Formant, fancy voice lesson talk, roughly means the resonant space, shaping the resonant space to create a certain set of overtones that sound pleasing, sound like what we're going after. Okay? Again, those of you that are doing this, in the head voice, are doing this, in the head voice, you're not anchoring your intrinsic anchoring set. Now you will. There are 3 muscles in the intrinsic anchoring set, and they are as follows. Number 1, your twanger, contracting the twang contraction. You gotta have that compression and maintain that twang compression that we talked about in the Learning to Twang lecture. Number 2, the tongue, leveraging the tongue. You need to take the tip of the tongue and press moderately, not too much, but a little bit of press against the back of your bottom teeth. Like that, okay? We call that leveraging, or leveraging the tongue against the back of the bottom teeth. When we activate the leveraging of the tongue, it helps assist the 3rd intrinsic muscular reaction that we're going for, and that is a lowering of the larynx, or sometimes we call it laryngeal dumping, okay? This is really super important. You know, you may not realize this, but let me clue you in on a little secret. One of the things that's making great singers sound big and boomy and like a belt in their head voice, one of the things that's making that work is the fact that when they're phonating, when they're singing in their head voice, they're able to anchor intrinsically and lower the larynx. When you lower the larynx, you open up resonant space in the pharynx. Larynx, pharynx, that might sound a little confusing. Larynx is an organ. Larynx is tissue. Larynx is that thing that, is in the picture in the book, and it's, I'm going to assume that you understand what the larynx is. It's an organ, okay? Pharynx is not tissue. Okay, like the glottis, like the term glottis, which just means the open space between the vocal folds. It's resonant space, it's just air. Pharynx is just the resonant space behind the back of the tongue, if I'm facing this way, behind the back of the tongue and the back of the trachea. So that open space right there, we call the pharynx. When I'm singing, if I lower my larynx, I open the space, the resonant space, in the pharynx. When I open the resonant space in the pharynx, like any instrument, if you get more resonant space, you get a darker, deeper, boomier overtone. If you increase the resonant space of a violin, you get a viola, okay? And so what we need to learn to do is we need to learn to dump the larynx when we're bridging through the passaggio and then hold on into the head voice. Why? Because we don't want to do this. If you're doing that, if you're currently taking lessons with some other program and the best that they can offer you is this, it's because those guys don't know how to show you how to lower your larynx and get after the intrinsic anchoring. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to activate those three muscles. You got your twanger, you got your leveraging tip of the tongue against the back of the bottom teeth, and you got the dumping of the larynx. When you activate those three intrinsic muscles at the same time, here's another thing, timing really important, they got to be at the same time. You coordinate them and you activate them at the same time, what you end up doing is getting a really nice, big, boomy, theater-like formant, which is a sound that we can use in any style of music. Okay, so watch me do it. Here we go, Mr. Pocket Tone again. I'm going to do a G3, G4, slow ascending octave siren to work and demonstrate the intrinsic anchoring set. You notice how frequently we're using this tool and how frequently we're using octave sirens for our training? Don't forget that. Okay, so there's our G. G3. Get myself a nice onset package. Now watch what happens as I do my slow, I phonate my slow ascending octave siren. What I'm going to do is right at about D4, D sharp 4, my last top chesty belts, before I get to E4 and kind of get into my head voice. Right about there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the tip of my tongue against the back of my bottom teeth, and I'm going to lower my larynx, okay? And I'm going to actually probably just give myself a little extra twangy, little extra compression right through the passaggio, okay? And the result will be that when I get to the G4 up here in the head voice, it'll sound bigger, boomy, it'll sound cool. Watch. Right about there. Watch again. I'll do it again. You see? That sounds pretty damn good. That's boomy. You can take that sound, you can take it to Broadway, you can take it to a prog metal band. It doesn't matter where you take it, people are going to like it. Okay, same thing. If I'm going to do a top-down onset from the G4 to the G3, what does that mean? You guessed it, that means that my onset's going to immediately lock and load that intrinsic anchoring. So right off the blocks, right at the beginning, I'm going to press my tongue, dump my larynx, probably add a little bit of a little extra squeeze on the twanger, and hold. Watch. You see? Now another thing you have to remember, it's not enough to just kind of lock and load your intrinsic anchoring set right here through the passaggio. It's not just about engaging the anchoring set, it's also about holding on or maintaining the anchoring set. If I lock and load my intrinsic anchoring and then I let go of the tongue leveraging, or I let the larynx kind of bounce and kind of float back up like it wants to naturally. If I let all that happen, then we get this. Larynx bounces back up, vocal fold closure goes away, all of a sudden I'm doing this, or I'm doing that again in the head voice, which we both know you don't want. That's why you bought this program, and I don't want that for you either. So, again, twanger, compressed, and holding. Don't stop twanging. 2, tip of the tongue against the back of the bottom teeth. Okay, don't stop pressing. 3, dump the larynx and hold it down. Understand, the body wants to make the larynx bounce back up. It wants to come back up to a kind of a neutral position. The instinct for the body is to not hold the larynx down. But as a singer, you're going to train yourself the coordination and the strength to do that. Again, one more time. that entire phonation from the top down, that sounded cool, I maintained pressure against the back of my bottom teeth, twangy compression, and lowering of the larynx. Okay? Now I'm going to assume that you've watched the Learning How to Twang lecture, and that, pressing the tip of the tongue against the back of the bottom teeth is fairly self-explanatory. But let's talk about how to get a feel for dumping the larynx. There's a couple things you can do. Number one, take your tip of your fingers and put it right here on your larynx. Okay? And then, like you're surprised, do a real quick inhale. It's kind of silly, but it's voice lesson stuff, but just kind of give yourself one of these. That kind of thing. Play with that, and you'll feel the larynx dump. Okay? Something else you can do is put your tip of your finger here on your Adam's apple and pretend that you're yawning. When you yawn, you feel the larynx dump. Okay? Another thing that you can do is, some people can do this, some people can't. If you can't, it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to be able to do this. But if you can do what I call a gluck, I don't know what they really call this in medical journals, but if you can do this thing, kind of dump, gluck, or dump your larynx. Again, it's another way of getting a feel, to making a physical association of what it feels like to lower your larynx. Okay? So, in the shower, in the car, be working on that lowering larynx feeling. And then, when you're doing your octave sirens, your workouts, and your training, and your music, I want you to make sure that you're pressing the tongue, maintaining the twang compression, and dumping the larynx through the passaggio and in the head voice. Generally speaking, when you're in your chest voice, the larynx sits in a neutral position or a little bit more high. When you're phonating in your head voice, at all times pretty much, when you're phonating in your head voice, generally speaking, the larynx sits in a lowered position. Okay? Chest voice, high larynx; head voice, low larynx, with intrinsic anchoring. Okay? This is absolutely critical. I know. One of the reasons why you bought this program, to bridge and to connect. And I know you want to be able to make your head tones sound like belts. You want to make them sound boomy and totally cool. I get that. I wanted that too. And believe me, this is, if you're not getting it done, this is what you need. You got to get the larynx to dump, you got to press with the tongue, and you got to maintain the twanger. You got to get those three little intrinsic muscles coordinated and working well. That's about the best I can do on a video. This is kind of complicated. It is advanced stuff. So this is a perfect example of something that you would probably do real well on and begin to get better at if we had a little bit of a one-on-one private lesson over the internet or here in Seattle, Washington. So if you're struggling with this, give me a call and let's have a quick lesson, and probably in about 15 or 20 minutes I'll have you sorted out and we'll get it all figured out for you. Okay.